There are some that speculate that the national monument located in the state of Wyoming called the Devil's Tower is actually the remains of what once was a huge, enormous sized tree. The more I look at it, the more I'm starting to believe it is just that. A huge, enormous sized tree stump. I looked at the scriptures for any biblical references to enormous sized trees, and I found some interesting data in the book of Daniel, chapter 4, verses 10 through 15, and I'm going to take a look at that in just a little bit. But right now I just wanted to show you some screenshots of this Devil's Tower, located again in the state of Wyoming. It is a national monument, and we know that these Satanists, occultists, Masons, Illuminati members like to rename some of these historical sites, and they name them after the realm they represent, which is the realm of darkness. So I want to know your thoughts. What do you think? What are we looking at here? What type of monument is this? Here are some screenshots of tree stumps, and as you can see, some of them resemble the Devil's Tower located in the state of Wyoming. Only these tree stumps are much, much smaller in comparison to the national monument located in Wyoming. As you can see, there are various tree stumps. Some look more close to the actual thing than others, but you can kind of get the idea that there's a good case, a good argument that the Wyoming National Monument called the Devil's Tower may very well be the remains of a tree that was huge in comparison to the ones we see today. Okay? There it is again. Okay, now let's turn to Daniel chapter 4, verses 10 to 15. Alright, here we have Daniel chapter 4, verses 10 to 15. I'm going to read from the King James Version. Verse 10 says, "Thus were the visions of Daniel in his bed. He saw and beheld a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height of that tree was great." Verse 11, it says that this tree that he saw in his vision, this tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. Now we know that when we read some of these verses in Scripture, they have different meanings. Some are to be taken literal, some are just metaphors. Some have two levels, meaning they are to be taken literal, and also there's a second level of understanding to these verses, a spiritual application to these verses. So you must have discernment and know when the verses have a dual meaning, sometimes even triple meaning, and sometimes they just have one meaning. So in order to get the meanings out of these passages, you got to have discernment. Anyways, if you read verses 14 and 15, it says that the tree was cut down or cut off, the branches too, and its fruit was scattered. Okay, verse 15. Check this out. It was commanded that this tree was left with only the stump of its roots in the earth. Now, let's go back. Again, this national monument in Wyoming looks like a huge tree stump. And there is biblical reference to an enormous sized tree. And as we just read, this tree was cut down, but only the stump was left, such as the one you're looking at on screen. So I'm going to be doing more research on this. For now, I just have this small lead, and I think it's pretty interesting. And like I said, a strong case or argument is brought forth when scripture backs it up. And we can't trust these people in positions of power to tell us what are we looking at. You're going to have to decide for yourself using discernment, because they're not going to tell you the truth. They'll tell you you're just looking at a rock. Is it just a rock? Or is it something else? You be the judge without them influencing your thinking, okay? So that's all I have for this video. I hope it was interesting to the ones listening and watching it. As always, nothing but love. Continue in the faith. And until next time, shalom.